Welcome to Get Wisdom Live with Carl Mollison and Brian Kelly. What if God was also a co-host? What if the historically rare ability to question God directly and get profound answers back has been rediscovered? What would God say to today's sophisticated but deeply troubled world? Get Wisdom Live is here to share those answers with you. Here is Carl Mollison and Brian Kelly. Welcome to another episode of Get Wisdom Live. I'm Brian Kelly, along with Get Wisdom founder and director, Carl Mollison. This week, Carl, a lot of our shows are really different from what people expect. And some people might even think it's weird, what we do. But probably not as weird as today's show, Carl. Curator discusses the miracle of retrocausal healing the past from the future. So this is going to be a mind-bending episode, Carl.
Well, it needs to be discussed because this is a major part of how prayers get answered. We have no idea in terms of what we're taught growing up, how much the past is continuing to influence us. So it's only logical that if you want to fix what's broken in your life, the preceding seeds that got planted along the way might need to be dealt with as the most effective way to rein that in, and certainly to solve the problem that continues to rumble. So It's no different than any other kind of difficulty, like a chronic illness. You don't think of that as starting in a prior life, but it may well have. And so we're going to hear some things about this.
Yeah, I mean, what we're learning here is that this is standard operating procedure for the divine realm to be able to heal the past. And maybe the difference is in this particular episode is that for, one of the few times that I'm aware of, we participated in that directly, knowing what we were doing because we learned about this modality. So it's a fascinating story, and we're going to get right into it, Carl. Carl, you asked Creator recently. A Lightworker healing protocol practitioner felt drawn to read the autobiography of a major sports figure. The sports figure, in the span of his career, earned and spent most of his $50 million in earnings on alcohol, prostitutes, and drugs, mostly cocaine. In his final season, he walked away from his career without even letting his team know, turning his back on a multi-million-dollar contract. One of the smallest players in his sport, he succeeded with immense talent, immense drive, and immense intimidation. Yet, for all his fame and success, he was a deeply troubled individual. He was the victim of a pedophile in his teens and subsequently blamed a lot of his troubles as stemming directly from this victimization. Can Creator share with us the backstory of this individual, how much of his struggle was karmic, and how much was targeting by dark spirits and extraterrestrials?
Okay, here we go. The forces of darkness that leave a stamp on things. It's ordinary. It happens to most people. So this is always a factor. We're not singling this person out. He's done nothing wrong. He's caught up in the swirl of negativity that's part of existence in the physical plane. So just a little bit of a perspective there from me. This is what Creator says. Karma plays a role almost always in everything that happens. You are a composite of positive and negative experiences of all kinds, some created and engineered and orchestrated by you almost entirely, and some done with others in a kind of back and forth dance together, and some done to you almost entirely by others and inflicting great harm at times as a consequence, all of which gets stored away and will return in an endless cycle with the goal of creating an opportunity to work on it, to set things right, resolve old dilemmas, and restore oneself to a higher level of functioning and inner alignment. At least that is the hope of having such an oversight that will be a relentless monitor and stimulus for change. All too often, in the absence of an awareness this is happening, and in the absence of effective tools for self-improvement, self-healing in particular, What may happen through the law of karma is a re-wounding that adds insult to injury and piles on energetically to increase the weight of the karmic obligations, and as a result, makes the life worse. This individual had significant karmic history, setting him up to indulge in various sources of pleasure that were harmful to his being and risky in ways unappreciated by most individuals. Substance abuse with alcohol or drugs in particular is a gateway for the attachment of dark spirits that can further undermine a person and tempt them with many dark thoughts, or terrorize them with inner bullying and manipulation through altered thinking, instilling negative self limiting beliefs, and in providing significant discouragement and stress, drain away energy and leave a person vulnerable to the point of collapse. They can even tip people into madness by working on their deep subconscious mind and other levels of the mind as well to trigger delusional thinking. And once that takes hold, can become difficult to dislodge. Being subjected to abuse will further weaken a person by making them more vulnerable than before. This is the consequence of trauma, that it becomes a compounding of difficulty and will be alarming to the senses, stir up many old experiences from deep memory, even of other lifetimes, and leave a person reeling from the onslaught of all they've had to reckon with. This often convinces the deep subconscious mind that they are facing an overwhelming struggle. That will likely bring back around many painful times and perhaps even cause their death. That is a lot to be facing on a regular basis. And even though it is outside conscious awareness, will undermine the physical body and the person emotionally. This is why many people have emotional breakdowns that seem inexplicable and are largely a mystery to themselves. People will seek a prosaic explanation and sometimes attribute their troubles to a simple prosaic causal circumstance like losing a job or a girlfriend, when the problems can be much deeper and darker. There is much undermining of humanity by mind control manipulation done by extraterrestrial beings. This is a further negative overlay designed intentionally to corrupt and diminish human progress.
So we are learning here that essentially he's not that special in regards to his difficulties. I mean, these are difficulties all of us have. What separates him is the fact that he was also at the same time extremely successful in his sport. And frankly, Carl, not everybody has $50 million to spend and blow on, you know, prostitutes and alcohol and drugs and survive to tell the story, right? So that's what makes him unusual. But makes him especially unusual is what's coming up in the next question. U.S. creator Carl, in his autobiography, this sports star wrote, I basically stopped eating and sleeping. I wanted to die, but my body was too resilient. Finally, I bought a gun from a pawn shop and decided to blow my brains out. I grabbed the bullet, loaded the gun, and jammed it in my mouth. I don't know. Maybe if I'd had it ready and didn't have to take the time to put the bullet in the chamber, I might have gone through with it. But once the barrel was rattling off my teeth and my finger was on the trigger, I'd cooled off just enough to hesitate. The LHP practitioner who worked on him, upon reading this in this autobiography, was struck by the sudden turnaround. Having recently learned about retrocausal healing, there was a strong feeling that the circuit needed completion. That on the off chance a future LHP helped to save this sports star in the past, the practitioner felt duty bound to perform a focused and heartfelt LHP session with this sports star as the client, at the time with the gun in his mouth. So the client wasn't just the sports star, but the sports star at a particular moment in time. Can Creator tell us if retrocausal healing saved the sports star's life?
All right, and this is what Creator says. As bizarre and improbable as this seems, the intuitive perception there is a connecting link in the strong desire to do healing in retrospect, long after this individual had that moment of crisis, and nearly took their own life and lived to write about it, in reading the story, there was an inner impulse to do something about that prior dilemma. That was divinely guided to happen because Creator, at this moment of self-doubt and torment the sports star was going through, literally ready to blow his brains out, knew there was a future potential to enlist the help of a practitioner of the Lightworker healing protocol to make a request for healing that could circle back to the past and provide human intention, allowing a divine intervention to take place. This is a kind of workaround through a partnership between a human being and the divine to bring divine help into play at a meaningful level in a timely way to head off a disaster. The rules of engagement are that the divine cannot act without a human request. And most of the time these days, people are not praying for divine help any longer. And even if they are a spiritual person, may not turn to prayer in a timely way, but more as an afterthought. And even the gesture might be weak at best through diminished faith, and certainly a lack of clarity about the true nature of the dilemma and how the divine realm might help in terms of mounting a response. People have not been taught how the divine realm works. And so any requests through prayer will be at a very primitive level and a weak gesture. Even if it is heartfelt and intensely desired, it will not give specific information, enabling a precise and powerful divine intervention in most cases. This is what the Lightworker Healing Protocol is designed to address. This gap in knowledge and understanding in order to give a tool of empowerment for anyone desiring to change things for the better through partnership with the divine, and that it can do beautifully. And it even includes specific requests for retrocausal healing of any and all problems needing attention. So it will ask the divine to explore the target client's multiple lifetimes in the physical and to work across timelines to address any and all sources of difficulty and give a high priority to what is stated as predominant client issues of concern. And in that case, it was this person's moment of turning to suicide and holding his own life in the balance and creating an urgent need for healing to raise his sights enough to spare his own life, giving time to continue working on the deep underpinnings, bringing things to a head, and a potential catastrophe that would short circuit his entire life purpose, playing out as it could otherwise. So we can confirm that this practitioner was not overreaching or exaggerating his potential influence on the life of this sports star. He was directly instrumental in saving the day and allowing the sports star to live and tell his powerful story of being able to make a change for the better.
Oh wow! I mean, that's what can you say to that, Carl? I mean, Creator saying this was not an overreach, and the hunch the practitioner had, he followed up on, figuring there was nothing to lose, right? Everything to gain, nothing to lose. And boy, what was gained was really amazing, just amazing.
Well, we've heard from Creator. This is actually routine work of the divine realm. It is more likely when people are asking for it specifically.
Yes.
One of the early clues from Creator was when I asked Creator why a young family was killed in an auto accident who seemingly were blameless of anything. This woman was driving her 3 children to Bible camp, got broadsided by a truck, and they were all killed. And so I'm asking Creator, why did this happen? Why did these children die? Maybe the woman had some karmic difficulty or something, but what about these children? And Creator said, They all had this potential to die young because they all had done it in other lifetimes. And the law of karma
Right.
was seeing that opportunity to bring this to a head. So here we are. And if this was Creator's clue, if you had been able to do a light worker healing protocol session for that woman, this accident would never have happened. It
Yeah.
would have been forestalled. So that opened my eyes to the potential here,
Sure.
especially if you have an inkling something is coming. And so that's our quest to find ways to help intervene. And so we do it proactively now on purpose when we do these sessions.
Yes. Absolutely. You asked Creator, this LHP session was unusual because the practitioner chose this client at a particular moment in time in the past to receive divine healing. Can Creator tell us if this served any purpose and if it helped to create a more powerful healing intention that may have made a crucial difference?
And Creator tells us your pre-planned question asked in a tentative way, commensurate with the uncertainty of knowing for sure that the healing outreach played any role at all here, greatly understates the power of what was actually done. Because the Lightworker healing protocol session, done in what was to come as his future years later by someone he never knew personally, looped back into the past with the healing energy at a crucial time, allowing enough healing to take place to stay his hand, help him to relax, and with a moment of clarity, with an easing of the inner tension, energizing that impulse for self destruction, he was able to collect his thoughts and find the inner strength to hold on to life a bit longer and set aside the prior decision to kill himself. That is as crucial a difference as one could ever see because it was truly a life or death moment hanging in the balance, as well as his entire future, not only of the current life, but the implications for a series of future lives beyond. Because once someone takes their life, it is a karmic liability they will inevitably revisit. In any future lifetime, they will be brought back into very similar circumstances, having a life of difficulty, challenge, and end up in torment, facing thoughts of suicide once again. And the karmic potential of what they gave in to in that prior life will exert a kind of pressure to build to a similar level of intensity, in a sense, as a test, but truly as a challenge to force them to pay attention and take action. The purpose of such a mechanism is to provide a path for an eventual healing resolution of the imbalance from the prior lifetime when he gave in to self judgment. So, suicide is always a karmic liability that will have to be reckoned with and put right. That is true of all harmful actions against the self or others. In one way or another, the law of karma will see it circles back to them, and they will be the recipient of similar challenges or tempted to lash out and harm others. That provides an opportunity to do better if they have learned and grown at all in the interim, and if they can successfully overcome that returning bout of negativity. It will have deep healing benefits in finally making restitution and restoring a state of equanimity in that karmic record that keeps track of such things. And they will be off the hook going forward. Those were the stakes involved here. Not only the potential shortening of the current lifetime, but a karmic setup to be challenged again and again with thoughts of suicide and a possibility of compounding the difficulty further. That is all too commonly what happens. There are many individuals suffering chronic illness, dying young, and it happens over and over again in a series of lifetimes because knowledge about how to heal and how to mount a successful divine partnership to bring that about has been truly lacking. And that is what you are bringing forward through this discussion, the reality that new divine wisdom is available for people to learn about and use it effectively to help their own lives with their struggles.
So the stakes were essentially immense here, Carl. Not only was his life spared at that moment, but creator is saying point blank, multiple future lives were impacted in a positive way, and he was given a new lease on life. And probably another reason why this is highlighted and maybe was, kind of arranged with some divine oversight and taps on the shoulder, so to speak, is because this is new divine wisdom on display that is now available for people to learn about and use effectively, as creator says in the last sentence. So, boy, there's just there's just so much that's coming forward with this information, Carl.
Well, and it applies to everyone, not just the more rare individual who gets to the brink of suicide. Everyone's got stuff. And this is what
Yep.
Creator says in the last sentence of this channeling. Use it effectively to help their own lives with their struggles, whatever those are. Not everyone gets suicidal in a lifetime, but many suffer.
Yeah.
It's all the same kind of dynamic. They're fighting the problems of the past, piling on and piling up, life after life after life. That's what we're dealing with, this mountain of unhealed karma. So I just want to point that out, that we all have a stake in making our own future better through healing the past like this.
Well, the light worker healing protocol is the number one means to do that because it's comprehensive. It's all inclusive in terms of what we've learned about how the divine realm heals and the problems that it attempts to resolve. And you can learn about the Lightworker Healing Protocol. You can learn about how to engage a practitioner to have it done for you or for a loved one. Or better yet, you can learn how to do it yourself and become a healer in your own right. And you can learn all of that by getting the ebook, getwisdom.com/LHP, getwisdom.com/LHP. Carl, you asked Creator, were there onboard spirit attachments pushing him to kill himself? If so, how was that overcome?
All right. And Creator says this is very much the case and is almost always a factor involved when people's thoughts turn to such a direction and cannot overcome it through their own inner resources. People have many challenges in life, but the goal is to roll with the punches, so to speak, and not be taken out, to find some kind of inner wherewithal to keep going and bounce back and return to a prior state of higher vibration that is healthier, happier, and inherently more stable and powerful in resisting outside negative influences. Dark spirits undermine a person in many ways. First of all, robbing them of life force energy because they are parasites, needing energy for their own survival, and they will take it from their human host. They also cannot resist trying to harm the host in any way they can. The immediate goal and benefit of this is to make their host need more energy to cope with what is going on, and that in turn will signal the higher self to open up the energetic gateway for greater life force energy to flow and help them keep going. Because these beings are evil and want to cause harm, they will do all they can to undermine, misdirect, and torment their host with threats and bullying. They will also look at their past history in the Akashic records for karmic liabilities that are the kind of landmines that can trigger a person and cause a great inner distress and turmoil. This is very much akin to opening old wounds and rubbing salt in them. It will greatly increase distress, painful recollections, and much inner fear about perceived vulnerability, because there will be a campaign of terror mocking the human host and menacing them. That can be highly effective in ramping up anxiety, depleting the person energetically, causing chronic sleep disturbances to further debilitate the person and simply reach a state of exhaustion. This helps to better understand how someone leading a blessed life could end up ready to end their life entirely at their own hands.
Oh, amazing! And this individual did leave a blessed life. I mean, he was at the top of his game, highly recognized in his field, in his sports expertise, and what he's
Well,
accomplished in his sport.
yeah, but
So it,
the thing I want to insert here for clarity, to understand this dynamic a little bit, we're not talking about those rare individuals who become aware of some voice talking in their head, saying nasty things and threatening them, and they're aware of that, and they will get diagnosed by psychologists as delusional and put on antipsychotics.
Right.
Most people never hear this dialogue because there's a deep part of the mind that's beneath conscious awareness, but
Right.
it causes huge stress in the body and many, many consequences. So that is the inner struggle we all have and don't know it.
Yeah.
And
In
that's
the
why
case
it's
of
so
this,
insidious. You don't know why you're troubled, why you're
yeah,
anxious, why you're depressed.
I think you're describing the inner state of the sports star, from what I've heard from the practitioner. That I don't think he heard voices. He just had an obsession that he couldn't shake. He had this deep anxiety and stress that he just couldn't get away from, and it brought him down to such a low point that he was ready to take his life. So we can all relate to stress and anxiety, Carol. You're absolutely right. This is our own story we're hearing in many, many ways. You asked Creator, we have recently learned that extraterrestrials can take over a human body for a period of time, and force a suicide even against the will of the person. Was that happening with this individual? The practitioner, knowing of this possibility, enhanced the LHP with the request to evict any extraterrestrial non local consciousness attempting to control the body. The practitioner further called on Archangel Michael to intervene and assist with this. The practitioner reported a discordant energy buildup in their solar plexus prior to calling on Archangel Michael, but once the call was made, a wave of peace swept over them. Can the LHP be used to evict such a consciousness at a crucial moment? What can Creator tell us?
And these are your creator's words. These impressions and feelings were an accurate perception of the energetics underway to create a healing circuit connecting the LHP practitioner with that sports star back in time, so that the intention for upliftment, repair, and healing, as well as protection from harm, were able to work in a comprehensive fashion as designed to address all of the underpinnings of what was coming to a seemingly unstoppable intensity of self directed negativity and shift things for the better. So the practitioner was feeling the hand of the divine physically on his being. And that was quite real because there literally is an energetic linkage between a human healer, the divine, and the target of the healing. And that is essential for the process to work effectively. And the reason why human beings themselves are so important as a factor in bringing about any kind of useful divine intervention. It is not only making a request via one's thoughts, as with prayer, but holding an energetic space in particular that holds extra power. And that is what a formal healing session can create and give a much more robust and certain benefit because the intention will be larger, of longer duration, and hold within it much specificity of detail concerning what is needed and the many potential sources giving rise to the problem. It is that specialized knowledge that allows the divine to apply energies much more powerfully and effectively to reach deeper and wider and truly address the foundation of the most profound and difficult of challenges that threaten the person's happiness and even existence. What was taking place was truly a battle of wills, a natural desire of the human sports star to persist, to continue living, but beginning to question the wisdom and even desirability of that, given the terrible emotional state he was in, but not being aware that much of that emotional pain was being generated because his deep subconscious was being bullied relentlessly by dark spirits, directed by interlopers to attack him, undermine him, and torment him without let up. They single out people who are successful to make examples of them, to drag them off their pedestal, so to speak, and in doing so will undermine many others looking to them for leadership and as an example to emulate in being successful. So when the mighty fall, it is discouraging and disheartening for all who care about them and respect them in their image. This is why celebrities and people of accomplishment are high value targets. If they can be dragged down and destroyed, it has a powerful impact on society as a whole by sowing doubt and discord and taking away hope. That is the game being played here in deadly earnest.
Whew, that what was taking place was truly a battle of wills. Well, I can tell you that the practitioner reported that for sure, and felt that deep within their being, that something really profound and significant was taking place. And Creator is definitely suggesting, more than suggesting, basically stating that dark spirits were certainly involved, and that interlopers or extraterrestrials, deceased extraterrestrials who were, probably managed by extraterrestrial psychics, were in a chain of causation, so to speak, back to this particular individual. So maybe there wasn't direct attempts to take over the body, but there was certainly fairly indirect, if not fairly direct, attempts to manipulate him emotionally so that he would do the deed himself. And he came darn close. So this was truly an epic moment for him individual. But we've learned from the previous answer that the ramifications of this event are far-reaching, Carl.
Well, and we know from our work that this kind of targeting is exceedingly common rather than a rarity. 5% of people are targeted formally in this way for a campaign of harassment, diminishment, and discouragement to keep them on the sidelines in life. And you see many people around you like this who are just kind of just taken out because they have so much that turns against them. People dislike them, people dismiss them, they can't keep relationships going, they can't keep a job going, all sorts of things just blow up, and it's arranged to happen many times. So this is a huge problem, and it's 1 out of 20 people who have this high level, but we all have the ordinary level brought to us courtesy of the law of karma to
Yep.
clean up after ourselves and all the things done to us as much as what we do to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, U.S. Creator, the practitioner noted that their breathing got deeper automatically and without effort as the LHP progressed. No conscious effort was made to breathe deeply, and in fact, the need to breathe deeply became almost overwhelming. Can Creator share with us what was happening to cause this?
All right, Creator says, this was induced to happen by the divine realm in response to the human intention to provide powerful and even life saving healing for this sports figure, even though it was in the past and seemingly already had to be successful because he's on record of having lived through those dark times. But even so, human intention for a high purpose is inspiring and needs inspiration as fuel because it is the very intention of a healing practitioner that is the fuel the divine will use, repurposing it to uplift the target needing assistance. And so that human energy must be sizable enough to accomplish what is needed to right the wrongs of history for the recipient and bring them back into good alignment energetically. In this case, because of the size of the karmic struggle, extra energy was needed, and that was potentiated by creating a physical maneuver through the breath to amplify the bodily energy and, in turn, create the need for a greater intensity of consciousness to be a match. And that, in turn, further empowered the intention for effective healing to be launched and reach the intended target with effectiveness, certainty, and to save the day. So, this was divine wisdom inspiring a willing human partner to do their utmost to be of service. That is what being open and allowing will do from the human side to enhance a human divine partnership underway for a high purpose and lofty goals.
This is really, really amazing. And it's you can think, well, why is Creator favoring this guy and favoring this practitioner and you know intervening to raise up their energy? Well, I can tell you why. Because the practitioner asked for it. That's what it is in the Lightwork Healing Protocol are requests to enhance our efforts if necessary. Right, Carl? I mean, there's
Yes.
nothing that's not being asked for here.
Yeah, it's a very comprehensive, multi-component, very detailed 14 pages of specific things that are requested to happen, and it covers all the bases, and we keep adding to it and have made numerous enhancements. I'm about to add something to the protocol tomorrow that is a further enhancement that will ramp up the power even more. So this is a work in progress, but it's a wonderful journey. And Creator's description of what went on with that practitioner, I found was very moving. The
Yes.
fact that this is it's kind of like a linking of hands
Hmm.
and becoming a friend, if only energetically from a
Right.
distance, and even from the future into the past. But
Yeah.
this is the power of consciousness, and
Yep.
it's divinity on the march.
Absolutely. Absolutely. U.S. creator, the sports star wrote, "It's not as if I'd felt this sudden urge to live. I felt like shit and wished I were dead. I think that's why after I chucked the gun into the desert, I was screaming like a madman. In a weird twist of fate, my 16-year-old son called and gave me reason to go on for the time being. I hadn't heard from him in months. His son reported he could no longer stand living with his mother and wanted to move in with his father. Did this intentional retrocausal LHP session play a role in inspiring his son to contact him at such a crucial moment?"
All right, and Creator says this is an insightful perception. There is a causal link here. This was divinely orchestrated as another avenue to bring further healing to bear. And as reported in the autobiography, the sports star was indeed uplifted sufficiently to want to go on living for the time being. So this was a bridge back to normalcy, courtesy of the divine realm, inspiring this boy to reconnect with his father and make a loving outreach. There is no better solution for someone in the depths of despair than to suddenly be given a good reason to go on living that is meaningful for them and may well be just what is needed to strengthen inner resolve and at least some commitment to keep going, if only provisionally. But that can lead to continued growth and strengthening, which did, in fact, come about eventually. A person in a suicidal state of mind can be vulnerable for quite a long interval because of the inevitable ups and downs they will have to reckon with, particularly without divine healing being brought to bear. But even when that is the case, it can be an ongoing contest with its own dynamics where things seem to go forward, but then backward in a series of ups and downs that will challenge a person and require renewed healing energy and inspiration to keep going. This is why divine healing is not as simple as throwing a switch that makes everything change in an instant, but it is typically a kind of campaign that plays out over time with periodic course corrections and adjustments to contend with the varying life experience that needs to be dealt with and accommodated along the way to help a person keep striving and make gains over time to get them to higher ground and a firmer foundation that almost always takes time to develop. So a person is truly out of that crisis mode and in a stable state of being they can count on and maintain.
Well, really, that was a miracle, and that's the story here is bringing about miracles, and we ask for the divine realm to intervene. We don't know how that's going to happen, but the divine can take our prayer intentions and use them to do all kinds of amazing things. In this sense, the timing of this was just beyond extraordinary. For a son to call his father and say, "Hey, I want to come live with you." I mean, literally minutes after he just tried to kill himself. Um, Boy, you can't script this stuff, Carl.
Well, this is what people call coincidence, but it's often the divine hand at work.
Yes.
And this is how the divine does its business, very modestly and indirectly from a distance and without announcing
Right.
what it's
Yes.
doing. And, it leaves us to find faith. It leads us to maintain our belief. That's part of the test of us and part of the challenge of this existence. If we knew God is right next to us all day long, we'd feel a little different about our lives. But we don't know that.
Yeah.
And so you have to believe.
Yeah.
That makes the challenge right there.
Yeah, you're not gonna get direct proof, but you're gonna get a lot of really strong evidence. Evidence being different from proof, essentially. But in this case, there's a lot of evidence that something very significant was going on here, and that divine intervention was certainly on the march. When you consider just the magnificent story of unfolding here, that this guy was ready to take his life. He was a high value target. There was forces arrayed against him, and all of a sudden, literally on a dime, it all turns around. So an amazing story, and you can help create these amazing stories. See, this is about taking action. This is about being empowered, and the way to do that is with, again, the Lightworker Healing Protocol. We can't overemphasize this enough. Take the time to download our ebook, getwisdom.com/lhp, getwisdom.com/lhp, and learn about this methodology. It is life changing and it's species changing, Carl. This will transform humanity.
Well, that's our goal, save and heal humanity
Yes.
sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we better get on with it, right? U.S. creator, just a few months after his near suicide, this sports star hit rock bottom. He was done playing a sport and didn't know what he would do with the rest of his life. He wrote, "Suddenly I hit my knees and said, God, please, please, please take this obsession with alcohol and drugs away. And I sat there crying and praying for hours. I needed God. My life was a disaster. Finally, I went to bed and woke up the next morning feeling different, really different. I went back into the bathroom and looked at myself in the big mirror and said, Holy shit, it's gone. It was my aha moment. And from that day and since, I have not had any desire whatsoever to have a drink or use drugs or be with another woman." Can Creator tell us if retrocausal healing helped with this abrupt turnaround? Did the LHP request to help increase his belief quotient play a role in his dramatic return to faith?
All right, and Creator says, this was indeed the second part of a 1-2 punch, so to speak, that got him to a critical turning point in making true progress where success was all but certain because the momentum could build to a high level of intensity that became unstoppable. So, the first blow in dealing with his dilemma was the removal of the dark spirit influences that had depleted him and caused such inner turmoil and torment that for much of his inner being, life was not worth living. There were prosaic explanations he focused on, as one will do to try to make sense of unhappiness. There is always something to pin it on, but that assumption, while being true, may not be the biggest culprit at all and might, in fact, be a minor component of a much larger dilemma underway from the inner conflict going on if one is being possessed by dark spirits trying to destroy the person. Once that was dealt with, there was still a residue of unhealed disarray and discouragement from the many alterations and distortions of thinking, courtesy of the perpetrators working so diligently to corrupt him and undermine his thinking. There is always a potential limitation posed by the power people hold as they are in charge of their own lives and their life experience and the safekeeping of their soul with respect to all their thoughts, feelings, and actions having karmic consequences. And the burdens of any landlord to take care of the infrastructure, so to speak, to be sure everything is maintained, kept in a healthy state, and nurtured with healing outlets for fun, exercise, human contact, and so on. When there are life difficulties that create stress, this can be compounded over time if nothing is substituted as an antidote. And this vulnerability will make someone much more easy to corrupt and carry out a campaign to undermine them much further, as done by dark spirits again and again for many in society. Once those perpetrators are removed, what is left is all of the self criticism, self doubt, and even self loathing from having reached such a dark state of being. It will unnerve a person at a minimum and leave them in a state of despair many times, because the world will not seem the same once they have stared death in the face and seriously contemplated embracing it as a better alternative to being who they are. That dim view of the self is very destructive, and it has a corrosive influence that grows over time. That is all healable. But when people believe in their own inadequacies, their own infirmity, and that their situation is essentially hopeless because they do not see the possibility of a happier future, because there's no clear path to making their life better, if they give in and give up, all may be lost. Then the divine cannot intercede on their behalf, even to heal them. You have the power to keep God at arm's length and condemn yourself to an early death through neglect and dissipation. If you come to believe yours is a hopeless case and you are doomed, you have put handcuffs on the Almighty, and then nothing will save you. You have sealed your own fate. There are many stories, as with this sports star hitting rock bottom, when there is a final letting go, a final resignation to the reality something beyond them must happen. And many times it is then and only then when they surrender to their dilemma and reach out for divine help, finally, in an effective way, having let go of their need for and belief in the suffering, that the problem is bigger than them. But perhaps God has an answer. And when they ask for that to come into play in earnest with an open and allowing mindset, as this person did, seeing with clarity his failures and that something more was needed, this resignation was a turning point because he literally got out of his own way and let the divine take the load. And that resignation received the love of the divine in answer to save the day and save him. He was raised up energetically, and over time, that strengthened more and more. It was the healing that changed his need for substances of abuse and unhealthy relationships he had turned to as a distraction from his real problems. That was a true healing advance, enabling him to deal with the real underlying issues and not live in denial with self soothing strategies that actually compounded the problem by making him more vulnerable through drugs and alcohol, for example. It was the LHP retrocausal healing that contributed to all of these positive developments and set them in motion.
So, the last sentence I think is very, very important because the word is contributed. So we want to emphasize that this individual, he hit rock bottom, and it's always, difficult to watch somebody go through that, because rock bottom is not a nice place to be, and the only place is up after that. And he hit the rock bottom, but he did bounce back, and he began praying in earnest with great energy and emotion. He prayed like he meant it, Carl, and as a result, began truly helping himself and could, in a sense, finally take over to chart his own life instead of needing this LHP practitioner to kind of get him jump started. But that's the beautiful thing is that we're all our brother's keeper. And it was just such a blessing for this LHP practitioner to be able to help this individual get past the crucial moment, get that engine started where he could take over his own future and move forward. That's divine on the march.
Yes, a beautiful, beautiful story.
U.S. creator, thinking about the ramifications of retrocausal healing can make one's head hurt. There is a huge what came first, the chicken or the egg question here. The LHP practitioner was able to identify the potential need for a retrocausal LHP and felt duty bound to do one for the sports star. Yet, an element of doubt remains about how widely applicable this might be. Foreknowledge of someone's death is rare, For people we know who have died, wouldn't doing a retrocausal LHP session be too late? Can Creator tell us how empowered prayer and the Lightworker Healing Protocol can help open people's minds about the amazing teachings of Creator via Get Wisdom?
All right, and this is what Creator says. Working to change the past through healing will align things to provide a powerful positive potential that will influence future lifetimes in a positive direction that may turn out to be all important and even end a series of failures and tragic endings, adding to the accumulated trauma. So it is not at all an idle gesture or faint hope, but a concrete and effective way to continue helping an individual. This is one of the strategies built into the Lightworker Healing Protocol itself, that even someone who has passed away, given the benefit of an LHP session, will not only be healed in ways that will assist their full and effective transition back to the heavenly realm, it will work back in time to remove much negativity that would darken future excursions in returning in future incarnations as a physical being once again. So it will work to clear the decks for them so they are not back where they started and behind an ever greater mountain of unhealed karmic debt, but rather have a new dawning to live a different kind of life, free of old constraints and impediments from accumulated trauma acting as a hindrance, an albatross around their neck that will drag them down over time and eventually take them under with an early death, for example. That is a routine part and intention of the Lightworker Healing Protocol, to be a part of the person's life journey from start to finish, and then to pick up again in the future whenever they reincarnate, to go to work on their behalf once again and continue working on the highest priorities that can be a karmic impediment to that progress in the future. There is no better life insurance than a partnership with Creator, because that pays dividends all along the way during the current life. And on death, continues to help the individual, not just their relatives with a cash payout so they can have some enjoyment courtesy of the deceased. The healing benefits will grow and continue being effected across multiple timelines and bringing a karmic future greatly enhanced when that would not happen otherwise. They would simply have to come back and pay the piper and return to a life of struggle and difficulty, most typical of the average human being who never heals anything deeply because there is no appreciation for what is truly needed, nor the tools made available. That is what empowered prayer and the Lightworker Healing Protocol are bringing to a turning point in history that will allow humanity for the first time to have a true turning point for the better, where lives that are lived will get better and better, and that will add greatly to a more positive future potential that will ensure human victory in the triumph over evil. The only catch is there must be enough human participation to launch enough intention for those tools to create that positive future potential with a sufficient magnitude to outweigh the darkness finally and gain the upper hand. There is a plan in place and underway for which the current practitioners using empowered prayer and the Lightworker Healing Protocol are adding steadily to a growing body of intention being deployed on behalf of everyone and the perpetrators in particular, because here again, a key piece of the story of what is causing the human dilemma has been denied you. You are suffering because you are being made to suffer by perpetrators, interlopers in your realm, dark spirits and extraterrestrial beings making the world worse, disrupting your lives and corrupting your beliefs and working steadily to undermine happiness. This takes a toll and sends you backward rather than making progress. So, dealing with the perpetrators in your midst is the highest priority. If they can be persuaded to withdraw for a time, That will provide a window allowing human healing to be done in earnest and make up for lost time to reach a higher plateau. Then and only then will there be a magnificent ascension of humanity to a higher dimension. That will be the true turning point for success in your struggle against the dark. Ascension will not happen until humanity is healed. And humanity will not be healed until the perpetrators are healed enough to take away the headwinds that are holding you back across the board and threaten your annihilation within the next few years. The stakes could not be higher, but the advantages to you could not be greater than to join forces with your brethren and contribute your mind and heart simply to the intention for divine healing to reach everyone everywhere through these focused and specific tools for learning and growth and bringing divine love to bear on all problems everywhere. If you do your part, humanity can win the day and you will be among victors.
Well, there certainly was a lot of lessons in this particular show, Carl. And one thought that comes to my mind is that we learned that the divine can actually enhance the efforts of the practitioner, ramp them up, give them more energy to meet a important need. And I think we can scale that, right? So, one practitioner's impact can be huge, but we can't rely on other people to do that and create that impact. We need you to join us in this effort. Creator has said there has to be enough human intention in place to save the day, to enable us to solve the problem of evil, have the perpetrators, take off on a vacation, and give us enough time to be able to heal humanity because humanity has to be healed first. That's the message that Get Wisdom is bringing to the world. And we're pretty much probably the only one bringing this particular message, Carl. There's a lot of people out there talking ascension, ascension, ascension. And there's something to this. Creator says ascension's part of the plan, but it's part of a plan and it's not a certainty yet. Something else has to happen in order to make that plan come alive, and that is healing, Carl, divine healing.
Yes, and we've been told that will require a quorum, enough people in aggregate doing and saying the right things to come together and create a harmonization of desire and specificity in what is needed to take place with specific requests and how to go about it. That's all through the thread of today's offering here from Creator. You got to know what you're doing, what you're about, and do it well. And there's a learning curve we've been on, and we haven't gone very far in all these thousands of years. Now is the moment when we have the revelations in hand, how to do this specifically, what to ask for, and how, and enough people, because there has to be enough energy. Just like this practitioner couldn't quite do it on their own. There was a component this person had to be ramped up a bit through the
Yeah.
breath to put a little more oomph in that. Well, we need a lot of oomph from a lot of people in aggregate to help heal the world, not just one individual.
Yes. So we need this effort that was taken by this practitioner to be amplified by many, many practitioners. And that's what the Light Healing Protocol is all about. And again, we can not emphasize it enough. Download the ebook, getwisdom.com/LHP, getwisdom.com/LHP. And empowered prayer, too, is going to help save humanity as well, because empowered prayer can also introduce very powerful intention that can help to ramp up and help create a bigger pool of divine intention. And empowered prayer doesn't take, doesn't have 14 pages, Carl. It's something that can be done very quickly, but it can make a huge difference as well.
Well, and we should also say that we can provide healing outreach on behalf of you yourself and anyone you care about. We often work on family groups and work on all their particular issues and anything that needs improvement in their life as a focus. but there can be many, many other things that get benefited, including going into the future, in this life and other lives as well. And certainly prevent things that might go wrong that aren't going to be dealt with any other way.
Right.
The easiest way to fix things is to prevent them from blowing up into a symptomatic mess. It's harder to fix something that's broken. And so the wisdom of starting some healing going in a high level way is really obvious and can really bring a wonderful benefit and a payoff in addition to helping everyone else.
Yes, and you can enlist the services of a practitioner by going to getwisdom.com, looking at our healing. There's a menu on the top of the page. There's a healing tab. Click on that, and then you can check out our services and engage a practitioner who can really help, because they already have the the wherewithal, the belief quotient, and they've been doing this for a while, and they have a track record of success, so they can certainly help you. No belief on your part is actually required, though it doesn't hurt to have it. That's all we have for this episode of Get Wisdom Live, Carl. Again, download the ebook, getwisdom.com/LHP. Get our prayer book, getwisdom.com/prayer, and we'll see you all next week.
Be well.